But at the end of the war, it was back to normal. The 1920s were the British motorcycle's first golden age. Production soared. Between 1919 and 1924, there were more motorcycles than cars on British roads. The motorcycle was growing up. Overhead valves replaced side valves on many machines, and sprung front forks and hub brakes appeared. Chain drive was standardized, as were electric rather than acetylene lights. At the end of the decade came the saddle tank, and resulted in a machine that would be instantly recognizable today. By the end of the decade, Britain was the world's leading motorcycle manufacturer. In 1929, there were close to 750,000 motorbikes on the country's greatly improved roads, a figure which was not bettered until 1953. But above all, the motorcycle became more reliable. If you set out for a destination, you could be sure of arriving. Granville Bradshaw displayed the vitality of British motorcycle design, with clutch and unit 4-speed gearbox just like a car's, and gate-type gear change. Both front and rear wheels were sprung, and there was the luxury of a front hub brake. Another design which Bradshaw dashed off on a rainy afternoon was a scooter which reflected the short-lived post-war boom. The craze extended to Europe. In Germany, DKW and even the mighty Krupp concern built them for a while. Not even Paris of 1920 was immune.
Now, like most things in life, there's a knack to learning a sidecar outfit. I discovered it the hard way when some Canadian friends of my father came to see us at our home. They were with a motorbike and sidecar. I was a little boy and I said, can I have a go? We lived in a private road, so our friend said, certainly you can. I got on the bike, blasted off up the road, didn't realise that when you turned, you had to compensate with the steering, and went straight through the hedge.
The sidecar had been an integral part of the motorcycle scene from the early 1900s. Why not undercut the traditional taxicab, put a folding top on the sidecar, add a meter, and ply for hire? Few people responded to the idea, though it was clearly a novelty. The famous banking at Brooklands, the world's first racetrack, opened in 1907. Brooklands was the venue for many victories by Norton, which, by the 1920s, was firmly established as one of Britain's leading manufacturers of racing motorcycles. James Norton had begun building motorbikes in Birmingham in 1902. His team produced the famous Model 18 Norton of 1922, a great bike of its time, but which incredibly continued to be manufactured until 1954. Problematically, the development of Norton's road bikes always played second fiddle to its potent racing machines, and this was to contribute to their demise. My father owned a very famous record-breaking Norton.
Here's Old Miracle, my 1912 Norton, originally the property of O'Donovan, which held no fewer than 31 world's records in 1912.
But apart from roads and racetracks, other surfaces and odd locations were being used to race bikes. Racing motorcyclist George Brough was responsible for the legendary Brough Superior of 1921. In 1922, it was dubbed the Rolls-Royce of motorcycles. Rolls-Royce protested until it inspected one. Perhaps Brough's most famous customer was Lawrence of Arabia, who was to meet his death on an SS-100. Scrambling was born on Camberley Heath, Surrey in 1924. Instead of having the timed sections of a trial, it was a free-for-all. One of the competitors remarked that it would be a bit of a scramble, and the word was born. I wonder whatever became of Miss Dodwell. In 1931, Ariel staged a publicity stunt to give the impression that kick-starting one of its big bikes was child's play. Edward Turner's 600cc Square 4 Ariel, nicknamed the Squariel, with its compact configuration of 4 cylinders. Incredibly, the concept survived until 1958. Outwardly, little changed. But what seems vintage now was high technology then.
GTT calling all motor patrol. A motor car has been stolen from 3-Beat. It is a blue Austin saloon.
It's a stolen motor car. Head for Grandstand Road.
Right.
Hello, number 4 patrol speaking. Motor car VK6826 reported stolen has been traced and thief arrested. Right.
Well done, lads. Back to the station for a cuppa. Lord Nuffield, as William Morris, had briefly built motorcycles prior to switching to cars in 1910. It was as Britain's leading car maker that he opened the 1936 motorcycle show. It was an ironic choice because the British motor industry boomed during the 1930s, and cheaper cars meant fewer customers for motorbikes. Although output slumped, Britain still had the world's largest motorcycle industry, but the decade was one of merger and consolidation. In 1931, Matchless bought AJS, a victim of the Depression, and when Ariel went bankrupt, it was bought by Jack Sangster. But in 1936, Dapper Jack had an even greater coup. He bought Triumph from its ailing car manufacturing parent for £50,000. Sangster switched the brilliant but dictatorial Edward Turner